For this brand ambassador series, today we're staying here in the US, but we're going more specifically to Virginia. And, well, Catoctin it is. Am I saying it right?
Yes, that's right. Catoctin Creek.
Very good.
Yeah.
Scott?
Nice to meet you.
Very nice having
Yes.
you here. But please, it's not just brand new.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know a bit more about it.
Sure. So
we need to know everything about it.
So Catoctin Creek, we are, first of all, the name is a creek. We actually sit on the creek. And we're in Northern Virginia, about 1 hour northwest of DC, as we start to get into the foothills of the Blue Ridge and the Appalachian Mountains. So we're just a little bit east of the Shenandoah Valley. Very pretty area, and very historical area for whiskey distilling. So, you know, we are Loudoun County's first distillery since Prohibition, first legal distillery since Prohibition. So we're very pleased to be doing something like this that we love.
Were you making whiskey in your childhood, but illegally, and all of a sudden you woke up and you said, that's it, I want to go legal?
No, my love of whiskey started actually with wine. My very first job as a very young 15-year-old boy was at a winery. And as a 15-year-old boy, you can imagine that you do everything at the winery. So I had to pick grapes and clean and, you know, press, and we bottled sparkling wine, and we did everything. And so it was a great experience. And then I went into my career in computers for 20 years, sitting behind a desk doing this. Right?
So that explains it.
Yeah, right. And so this taught me a great love of drinking. And so I took that, developed a taste for brandies and whiskeys from Scotland and all of these, and eventually decided, you know, I was turning 40, and I said, what do I want to do with my life? I don't want to sit behind a desk doing computers anymore. What I really enjoy is whiskey, and I'd love to make whiskey. And so luckily I married well. My wife is a chemical engineer, and together...
You married well.
Yeah, she was very willing, which is another great asset. And we put our heads together, came up with a business, and then took basically our life savings and put it into building a distillery. And we've been very happy. It's a lot of hard work, but we really love it.
And this is when? 3 years ago?
This was in about 2008, 2009. We were really starting to get the itch. Me. We had been going to Europe for trips, and I was born and raised in Germany, and so, you know, had this great love of the food culture and the spirits and all of this that we'd get in Germany. And we were in Ireland on this particular trip, and we were touring through Bushmills. And we're walking out across the factory floor, and you see the enormous pot stills and all of the equipment. And I looked out at that, and it was in a moment when I just stood there and I said, I want this. This is what I want to do. And of course, we're much smaller than that, but it's the same process. It's the same job, and I love it.
Very good. We just got this, that Roundstone Rye.
That's right.
And there are some of your own markings, writing.
Yes, that's right.
On the labels.
That's right. So every bottle that we produce is hand bottled, and we typically do it with teams of volunteers. About half the time, it's just general people from the public we invite to come in every other weekend, so twice every 2 months or every 2 weeks. And they come in, we tell them how to do the bottling, and then as part of the bottling, they get to sign whatever they like on the labels. And we see some very cute expressions, sometimes, you know, poems. We've had a tattoo artist put drawings on every bottle. It can be quite lovely.
We've got one that says you're very handsome, or you're dead handsome, something like this.
Right. It's quite amusing, and we'll hear back from restaurants and places that say that we got a bottle that says something, you know, very clever. And I often don't know what they say, and I'll pull bottles out when we sell them at the distillery, and I'll say, oh my goodness, you know, this is quite outrageous sometimes, but it's fun.
But this is a rye whiskey. You're producing gin.
That's right.
What else are you
So our 3 anchor products, which we have here tonight, the Mosby Spirit is the white whiskey that we produce. This is actually the raw spirit for the Roundstone Rye.
Right.
So we brought that so we can have a taste of that, and you'll see a nice example of essentially wood and no wood. Okay. We also produce a gin. Now the gin is a production from our whiskey production. It's actually a byproduct of the whiskey production. So with the gin, what we do is we make a very conservative heart's cut in the whiskey to make a very clean, very nice tasting whiskey. And then we have a surplus of tails, and so we need to do something with these tails. And so they accumulate, and then we will double distill those. Okay, so we pull those through the still, pulling out the fusel oils, giving a nice, clean, neutral base. Not quite high enough proof to be called a vodka, but very similar, coming off at about 180 proof. And then we take that base and macerate our herbs into that. So we're taking juniper, coriander, cinnamon, anise, about 10 different herbs, soaking in that spirit, and then we redistill it one more time.
I want you to talk more about whiskey, but is there a Virginia style of gin?
I guess there is now. I mean, there's not very much gin in Virginia. There's a couple other producers making gin in Virginia, but this is a very unique style. We call it a modern style, and it has a very green flavor. In our county, if you come to visit, it's a very green county, lots of meadows and trees and rolling hills, and we wanted to capture that in the gin that we're producing.
But rye is the raw material.
Rye is the raw material. Rye is the historical grain of Virginia since the time of George Washington. So in the colonies, rye, grows very well. Even today, they grow rye as a cover crop, and most farms today will simply plow that under just to hold the field. And in the old days, of course, they would never plow it under. They would harvest the rye, make some spirit, and sell it. And every farm pre-prohibition was making rye whiskey, just about. And so that's what this white spirit represents. The Mosby spirit. Mosby is a very famous name in the area. He was a Confederate colonel, a guerrilla fighter, and the whiskey then is very representative of the time around the Civil War, what people were drinking. Basically, White Lightning. Legal moonshine, if you will. This is our Virginia white whiskey, and it's very nice, very clean, beautiful flavors of the rye.
I suggest we taste it.
Absolutely.
And it's organic.
It is. It
So
is.
all your production is organic?
All of these three are organic. Yeah, that's right. It's rye.
Sourced right around the distillery, anywhere in
No,
Virginia?
it's hard. Virginia, especially with organic. So right now we have mostly Kansas rye that goes into this product. We've been working with some local farms, and actually it's been quite a challenging problem to solve in getting some organic rye production in Virginia.
Right.
Where there's a farm that's about 10 miles north of us that's going to start to introduce small grain production. They're already certified organic, and that's the toughest thing, is that there's lots of farmers who produce using organic methods, but if the federal government, it requires the certification for us to use it. So.
It's quite flavorful.
Yeah.
If you drink it just like this, would you add ice? Would you best use this in a cocktail? Or?
This very few people will drink this straight like this. I do. I enjoy it neat.
It certainly doesn't hurt.
It's quite nice.
It's very flavorful.
But the historical use for this, of course, then would be with fruit. I mean, all the moonshine would be in a jar with some fruit, and you'd get some nice, variations from that.
Right.
Modern use, we like to treat this instead like a vodka. So with this, you can make a Bloody Mary. We call it a Bloody Mosby. It gives a new dimension to the vodka cocktails. So very nice with cucumber, with watermelon cocktails. Anything with fruit is nice. Martinis. We have a cocktail that our version of the Vesper, where we use the gin, the Mosby's instead of vodka, and make what we call the Ghost of Vesperland. So this is our version, invented by our brand ambassador, Chad. So
Lovely. How many people work at the distillery?
we have 3 production staff. That's me, my wife, Becky, and Greg. Greg is our assistant distiller. He just hired on this year, and we've been running so crazy now. We're running 2 shifts every day, and so Greg runs the second shift for us every day.
What kind of still?
We have a German pot still made by Kota, and it's a 400-liter still. And we actually got our second still on order. We expect it to arrive this summer. It's a 1,200-liter still, so with that we'll quadruple our total capacity.
But that means that everybody's excited about what you're doing.
Yeah. It's very exciting and scary at the same time. We're growing very fast. Since we started, we've doubled our production every year, and we're right now at the limit of what we can support on the current equipment. So, of course, then time to buy more equipment. The DC market is a great market, and now that we're in New York, of course, this is a supermarket as well. So we're very excited and anticipating that growth. And
let's go back to, say, the fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
You get your grain.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using some exogenous enzymes that you're buying, or are you using malted barley? How do you do
we use a few enzymes, but we also use a concentrated malt extract. Okay, so we use a little bit of that, but mostly rye, just the rye itself.
And then you grind it, or does it come already
We
ground?
get it already in bags ground, and so we basically mash it. We'll mash 1,000 liters of water with about 700 pounds of rye. And then that creates, of course, a very thick paste, and the enzymes break that paste down so that we can pump it. That's probably the most important use for us.
But you pump it whole.
We pump it whole into the fermenter.
No
into the fermenters. Yeah, we'll pump it into the fermenters as a mash. We don't filter. We don't strain out the grain.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a porridge is essentially what it is.
So you mash and you ferment separately.
We ferment in the porridge state to 10% and 10%. Yep, and that gives us a nice. It's a relatively low percent, but that gives a nice boost of the flavor. So it's less efficient, but the flavor is better. And then
you pump that to the...
And then we actually just gravity feed it into the still. So our fermenters are portable. We lift them on the forklift, and it's a big hose right into the still.
All right.
And then we distill on the grain as well.
Okay.
And when we're done, what's left in the still is cattle feed. So we have 4 farms that we now feed.
They must be happy.
Oh, very happy.
Is it pigs, cows?
Both. Mostly cows, mostly beef cows. And what's really nice, I love this about this process, that I can actually go to a restaurant in my hometown that is fed the mash from my production and have a hamburger that was made from that cow. So that's pretty nice. That's the circle of agriculture all in one place.
It should be like this.
Yeah, absolutely.